35 hours worth of replay footage, 60 hours of gameplay, and over 250 days in Minecraft. But we have taken on the giant task of terraforming an entire end island in one episode into something that you could mistake for the overworld. Welcome back to the Hardcore series, guys. I'm Kingelffe, and today we take on the mammoth task of terraforming our next door neighbor of an end island. So we're going to get that started with a time lapse, and if you haven't already, please do make sure to subscribe to the channel as it helps me out more than you know with keeping things running around here. Also, if you like this video, make sure to drop a like. Like I said, it took forever to make, so let me know if you like it down in the comment section below as well. But without further ado, let's get terraforming. Let's get this time lapse rolling, and this is a long one, guys. This is a 6-minute time lapse all in all, but when you break it down, every 5 seconds of footage that you're seeing here is roughly half hour of work on my end. In total, I have 23 time lapse files, totaling to 35 hours worth of footage. And that's just the time that I actually spent working on the island itself. There's a lot of time that is missing from these files as well, between me having to go out and gather more dirt, and also me having to step back and take a look at the shape of the island, as I do freehand all of these builds, so I don't have anything planned out when I go into these. I just start placing blocks, then I take a few steps back, take a look, see what I need to fix, go back in and fix it. And I do that as many times as I need to until I'm happy with how the build looks. So if you total all the time up, we're looking at about 35 hours of actually building this island. We're looking at roughly, I'd say 10 hours of pondering and looking at the island, trying to figure out what I can fix, and taking those steps back that I needed to, like I said, and also making the fixes that I need to. And then probably another 10 hours of just gathering dirt, because at the beginning of this, I collected 20 double chests of dirt, thinking that would be enough. Spoiler alert, it was not. I ran out less than halfway through the island, had to go out and collect another 38 double chests worth of dirt. I do still have a couple double chests of dirt left, but not nearly as many as I thought I would when I collected those other 38 double chests. But I am going to need what I have left when I go to stage 2 of my terraforming process, which is going to be smoothing out some of the rough edges on the island, because as you can probably see by now, not all of the slopes are perfect as they are right now. This is just a first run through the terraforming process. It's a little easier when you're working on, an existing landmass, because you have shapes to work off of. But with this, I'm creating all of the terrain from scratch, block by block, so there are going to be some weird looking areas after I'm done my first draft, essentially. This is what this is. And then we're going to go back and we're going to smooth out some of the rough edges by adding a bit of dirt and taking a bit away where we need to. Smoothing out the terrain is what I call step 2 of my terraforming process, but there is a step 3 after that as well, and that's going to be adding details. So that's where we're going to actually start adding in other blocks than dirt and stone. We're going to start adding in some andesite, some gravel, some tough blocks, some deep slate, anything we need to make the terrain look a little bit more interesting. And speaking of adding intrigue to the terrain, that's why I'm adding random cliffs in here and there, and I'm trying to get as much height variation as I can, because if we just follow the basic shape of the end island, then we're going to get a very boring blob of dirt, essentially, and that's not at all what we want if we're going to put the effort into actually terraforming the end. We want to try and make this look like the overworld, and the overworld isn't just flat. There are cliffs, there are mountains, there are plains, there are hills, and we have to take all that into consideration when we're doing this here. So even if it's just a 3 high area of stone that runs for maybe 7 blocks, it adds a little bit of color into the terrain, and it gives your eyes something to lock onto other than just green. Now, I know that the cliffs I've been adding look a little boring right now. They're just a flat face, but trust me, that is going to change during stage 2 of my terraforming process, because that is where I add all the details, like I said earlier. So that's where I'm going to go in, and I'm going to rough up the terrain a little bit. I'm going to take some blocks out. I'm going to give it some depth. And we can add some stairs and slabs and stuff in there too, to make it look a little bit more cliff-like and not just like a wall of stone. Now, one thing I should probably mention with this being a 35-hour long building process is burnout did become a little bit of an issue, because around this point right here, when I transition into starting the hill at the end of the island, that's where I hit my burnout phase, and I could not figure out how to place the blocks for the life of me. So I did pretty much the only thing that I could. I stopped working on that and I started working on a different part of the island, because if I kept working on that, I would have just gotten more and more discouraged, and it may have lost motivation for the project. And that's the last thing I wanted to do on this area, because I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could do it, but I just couldn't do it at that moment. I knew I could do the other part of the island no problem because it was a blank slate. So I moved over there and I started doing my thing. And you may notice on this part of the island that there's a giant stone blob formed there with nothing on it. And throughout the rest of the time lapse, nothing is going to be built on it because I am saving that for another video. That way I can get this out to you guys in a reasonable amount of time. I know it's been a long time since my last video, so I don't want to keep you waiting longer while I build a literal mountain there, because that's what that is designated for. It's going to be a small to medium-sized mountain that's going to transition into the next type of terrain on the next islands. There is another reason that I want a mountain there, but I'll show you that when we're out of the time lapse and I'm actually giving you the tour of this area. It'll make more sense when I can actually show you what I mean. But working on the other part of the island is exactly what I needed because I managed to overcome my burnout and get some inspiration for that center part of the island. And I actually worked on a lot of that on stream. We worked on quite a bit of this on stream actually, so if you're not already following me on Twitch, make sure you do that because we have a lot of fun over there, and I do get a lot of work done too. So twitch.tv/Kingelffe if you're interested. The link will be in the description below. You will notice that there are a few areas that didn't get finished in this time lapse, and that's because I didn't want to actually work on them in this time lapse. I was already starting to lose a little bit of motivation for the terraforming, so I wanted to move on to the next steps and give you guys the tour around. So I'll finish the parts that are not finished off camera, and I'll show you guys those in the next episode. But I think it's about time to hop out of time-lapse mode and back into first person. See you guys in a sec. I knew that this was going to take a long time. What I didn't know was just how long it was going to take. If I take myself out of zoom mode here, you can see just how much progress has been made on the island behind me. And guess what? We're not done. We still have 2 more stages of the terraforming process left to go, and I have parts that I didn't finish from stage 1 as well, which I still have to finish at some point, but not right now. Anyways, for a frame of reference, we started this terraforming process on day 392. Guess what day it is today? Today is day 612. We've spent over 200 days working on this island so far, and we are not done. But I will admit, the bulk of the work is out of the way, because stage 1 takes up about, I'd say 75 to 80% of the time that is required to do this terraforming process. So let's take a quick fly around and see what we got here. Like I said, we do have a few unfinished areas, and the main one that I want to get done as quick as possible is the backside of the starting part of the island. So this still needs to be done. It's a fairly steep slope, and I know I have to redo parts of the top here, but it's front and center, so I do want to get that done as soon as possible so that I can start working on this island. And this area is looking a little wonky, so that's going to have to get changed up, I think. Area number 2 that's not done is this one right here. But I do have a pretty cool idea for what's going to go over here. I just know that I'm going to need a decent amount of time to work on it, so I didn't want to do that in this video here, because it would have taken probably another 30 days just to work on this area, I think. And the third and final place that I didn't finish, I mentioned in the time-lapse, is the mountain over here. And once again, that's going to take me like several days to finish. No, not several days. What am I talking about? It's going to take me like at least another 30 days to do this mountain. So we're gonna leave that for another video too. But flying over the terrain here, you get a appreciation for just how big this area is. You actually have to use a lot of rockets to traverse the entire island, so it does feel like you're flying through an actual plains biome right now in the overworld, other than the fact that it's eternal night. But I came back over this way for a reason, and that's because during the time lapse I said that I was going to show you what I meant by I needed a mountain in that area. So, standing over here on this island is where I can actually put that into perspective. Because if we look over this island right now, we've got some cool cliffs, we've got some height variation over here, we've got some height variation over there, but this is a very large open area that is just blackness. As soon as we have a semi-big mountain here, that's going to poke up right about here. So that's going to break up the empty void a little bit, and then in this area we're going to have a building, so that'll break up a little bit more of that empty void, and this will actually start to look a little bit more full and less like just a flat plain. But as mentioned before, that's a job for another day. What I do want to work on today is stage 2 of the terraforming process on the area that we have already finished. So to do that, we're going to need a little bit of stone. So we're just going to yoink a bunch from this chest up here. And I think we'll start with an easy area. We'll work on these little cliffs first before we move over to the big one there, because that over there is a center feature of the island when you're looking at it from the starter island. So I want to make sure that I get that one right the first time. I can use these little areas to kind of experiment and figure out what I want with these areas, because I haven't done this in quite a while, so I'm going to be a little bit out of practice. Essentially what I'm going to be doing first is I'm going to be breaking blocks at the bottom, because the general shape that I want for the cliff faces is I want it to go up a little bit, then I want it to come out and go up a little bit more and come out and go up a little bit more, so that we get this kind of shape to the cliff. So I know it's not going to come out quite the first time, so we're just going to knock out a few blocks here and we'll see what it looks like. And once we've knocked those blocks out, obviously we got to place them back in behind here so that we have, you know, not just an empty void into the end stone. Alright, we're starting to move in the right direction now. We got a little bit of shape to this cliff now, but it's looking a little wonky. And with these smaller cliffs, it is a little bit more difficult because you have less space to work with vertically, but that's where slabs and stairs come in. So we're going to go ahead and make a few of each, and now we can start adding a little bit more variation because we've got 2 blocks down here that look the exact same, and that's what makes it look a little wonky in my opinion. So if we add a stair here, then that's just a little chip out of the bottom now, and it's not at the same height as this area. So it gives a little bit of variation. Then we got that same situation here and here, same height. So if we add a slab there, then we got a little bit of variation again. And then we could do something a little bit like this too. If we add a stair in like that, then it looks like a little bit of a chip out of the side. Just gotta fix this up a little bit here. And cool. And at the bottom, there's nothing wrong with having the cliff come back out a little bit too. So I can do that in some areas to make it look a little bit different as well. So I'm gonna rough this area up a little bit and I'll bring you back in afterwards. There we go. I've added a little bit of shape to both of these cliffs now, but they are still looking a little bland, and that's because I haven't done step 3 yet. So what I'm going to do is I've got a few blocks together. I've got some coarse dirt, I've got some andesite, I've got some tuff. I'm actually going to do stage 3 on these 2 cliffs here. That way you can see what the finished product is going to kind of look like. And just like that, we have a little bit more texture to our cliffs. So with them being a little shorter, it's hard to add anything other than andesite into the cliff wall without it looking weird. So for example, if I took, say, actually we're going to use tuff. Let's say if we took tuff and we started working that into the cliff here, it definitely looks a little out of place. We can make it work if we do a big enough gradient, but just with this small cliff face, I don't think it really looks that great. So we're going to leave it as stone and andesite for now. I may add in some like mossy cobblestone or something once I have the moss or vines to be able to make it. But for now, I think this is good. Also, along the base of the cliff, I've added in a bunch of coarse dirt, because having the grass go right up against the cliff is a little jarring. Let me see if I can find you an example. Yeah, this back side of the hill is a perfect example. So we've got grass going right up to the side of the cliff, which is a big contrast of colors, so green on gray. But if we take the cliff that we did over here, it's around here somewhere. Aha, here it is. But if you go for the gradient of green to brown to gray, it's a lot easier on the eyes and you can focus on where the transition takes place. And already from a distance, you can tell that those cliffs are starting to look a lot more natural. They're not totally natural yet because we don't have anything around them, so that's where the decoration part of the third part of terraforming comes in. But for now, it's looking alright. So we're going to leave these as is right now because there's another thing that we got to do during our second part of terraforming, and that is smooth out the terrain. So if I get a little bit of a bird's eye view here, you'll notice that I have some pretty rough edges going on, specifically right here. That's the first one that jumps out at me. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring some dirt in and we're going to start smoothing out some of these edges here. That way when we're flying over, it looks a little bit more natural. So filling in places like that, and also areas like this where it looks kind of square, because looking at it from up here, it definitely looks more like a square than a curve. So what we can do is we can bring some more dirt in this area to kind of round out this edge a bit. That's a little better, and now we're actually starting to get some good shape to this island. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around, I'm going to round out some of these areas, shave off some of the sharp edges, and also work on some of the cliffs, and then we'll jump back, because this is going to take a little while to do. I've got a lot of cliffs around here, and I know that there's a lot of sharp edges, so this is going to take a minute. There we go. Things are starting to look a little nicer now that we have some texture to the cliffs and they're not just flat walls anymore. But I got all the big ones done, mainly that one on the front and this one around back here. But there's nothing like editing replay footage to make you realize you missed a few spots. Yep, there's another one there. This one here is a small one, so I'm just going to fix it up real quick, I think. Because all we really need to do is add a few blocks in here and there, and that's all we really need for the smaller cliffs. Nothing fancy, but it is good enough. Maybe a few more blocks right here. There we go, just that little bit of detail adds so much more to this area. But I'm going to take a little bit of a break from working on the terraforming here to address this right here. So on stream the other day, we started mapping out a little bit of a main path to go through this island, because there are going to be a few different buildings scattered throughout the island, not only farmland. So as you know, most of this is just going to be farmland, and this is going to be what I'm calling my weedy plains biome. Nothing fancy, just a lot of wheat fields. We're going to scatter some potato fields and some carrot fields in there, and any farm that we need is going to be located on this island. So we're going to have sugarcane here, we're going to have carrots, potatoes, wheat, we're going to have all the things that I can't think of yet. Animals, that's another one that's going to be on this island. Pretty much anything that has to do with food. And if we're going to have animals, that means we need a barn house. So that's one of the buildings we're going to have on the island here. Also, we're going to have a windmill, we're going to have a silo, and we're going to have a farmhouse to store everything in. And if you look at the path, there's a few areas that split off here. So this path right here is going to lead up on top of this hill where our windmill is going to be. Right here in this central area, we're going to have a silo and a tree, I think. Not 100% settled on that, but I think that's the plan. I'm thinking this area right here is going to be where we have our barnyard animals and our farmhouse. Sorry, not the farmhouse, the barn. The farmhouse is going to be over here at the base of the mountain, I think, once we have that in. And that's going to be our main storage area. So probably around here's where the farmhouse is going to be, and then we're going to do a little bit of decoration at the base of the mountain here. I'm thinking of maybe having a little bit of a lake here. I'll have to re-terraform the area a little bit, but I think we can make it work. And there's one other path that I haven't addressed yet, and that's this one going straight off the cliff here. Right here is where we're going to have a second aqueduct like I have right there. So that's going to come across from that side of the island to this side of the island, and it's going to give kind of a cool focal point from our wizard tower over there. Eventually, we're also going to have another aqueduct over there on that peninsula, I think, but that's a job for another day once we start terraforming that island there. But as you can see right now, this is only an outline for a path, so I've got a little bit of work to do to actually make this into a real path, starting with just making it a little bit wider. We're going to have to add some details in eventually too. We're going to have to get these little bits of endstone out from underneath because they're looking real weird. Actually, you know what? We can probably leave those there because once I put in the spruce slabs to make it so that you can actually just walk up these, it'll be nice and covered. If I'm being honest, I don't really know what I want this path to look like. I'm just kind of tearing up the dirt right now and hoping that it'll look all right. But we'll do a little patch and then we'll see how it looks, see what we need to fix, and go back and fix it, just like we did with the rest of the terraforming. It's been a long and grindy episode so far. I know it may not seem like it for you guys. You're probably only about 10 or 15 minutes into the video, but for me, I'm working on hour like 60 or 70 of this video, I think. There we go. We've made a little bit of progress here, so let's take a step back and see what it looks like. There we go. Now we're starting to talk. Just got to keep running that this way and see where the path takes us. And as I do this, I'm going to find places that I need to fix up the terraforming. Like for this, we don't really want a path block hanging over the edge here, so add a little bit of extra dirt there. And also, while I have a minute with you guys, I should probably take a second to address one thing that you guys may have noticed. Let me just scroll through my tools here real quick and show you my axe. Yep, my stream chat was added again, and they renamed my tools on me. We had a bunch of fun though, but this is the first time I've really gotten to show anyone on video because, well, for the past 2 weeks I've been working on a time lapse, so I haven't really recorded anything for quite a while. So I figured I'd just address that so that's not just a random alligator in the room. Now, there are going to be places like this right here, where we have an intersection of a bunch of different paths, where I think we should just open it up a little bit. And I am going to add a lot more texture to these paths eventually, but for now we're just going to leave them as path blocks, and then we'll come back later and we'll add like coarse dirt and everything to them. In fact, we may even just replace the paths with coarse dirt. I haven't decided yet, but this is a nice easy solution for the time being. But I have been humming and hawing for a little while on whether or not I should use coarse dirt for the paths, because I saw Fwip do that, and it looks awesome, honestly. I really like the look of the coarse dirt paths, and I think it could add a lot of, needed detail to our islands. So we're going to think on that, and if you have any opinions on that, leave them down in the comments below. And a quick progress update on the path here. It's looking good, I think. We're starting to get some actual details on the island here, which is really nice to see. It's not just a green blob. And back to destroying all the dirt that I so diligently placed. Okay, this is a bit of a rough area here. Don't exactly know how I'm going to get the paths to work. I think the solution's going to be to redirect the path going this way, and then have it meet up over here. I don't know if it's the best option, but it's the one that I'm going with. There we go, the main path itself is done. Now it's just time to deal with some of the extra areas that I added in, like this path right here, and the one going up the side of the hill there. Also, I have no idea what the answer to this is, but does anyone know if Endermen spawn on path blocks? I don't think they do, but I've been wrong before. There we go, this should be the last of the path blocks that I need to put down, and then we can step back and take a look at the entire thing. And how are we looking? I'd say that's not looking too bad. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot a path. One sec. There we go. Now all the paths are done. I haven't continued it out this way yet because I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with this side of the island. But pretty much everything from here all the way over to the starter island, I have a plan for in one way or another. Well, guys, it's been a ride. We've taken the end island from looking something like this to looking like a terraformed paradise. Well, kind of. I mean, it's not done yet, but it will be a terraformed paradise when it is completely finished. We have done a lot of work today, though, and I think it's time to call it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you did, make sure to drop a like on the video, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, that way you know when my next video goes live, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye!